I've been married to the crown prince for many years and have nothing to show for it. Yet the maid by my side has a bulging belly on the day of his ascension, he said coldly. I can give you the position of empress, but Wen Yang must be the imperial consort. He forgot. It was me who gave him the position of crown prince Rebirth. I turned around and pulled his arch-dan rival out of the cold palace. Your ladyship says it is cold, quickly add charcoal. But we're out of charcoal in our palace. Listening to the palace servants' conversation, I felt a pang of sorrow. My name is Cao Ling Yi. From the time I entered the palace as a child, I was established as the crown princess, when the crown prince had not yet been determined. It can be said that when the late emperor was alive, the crown prince could be deposed, but the crown princess could never be deposed. I was called born with the destiny of an empress by the world. I lay on the bed looking at the snowflakes falling outside the window, the heavy snow bending the branches. I had a premonition that my time was short. Cough, cough. Has His Majesty arrived? The head maid Chungshuan, her eyes reddened, stepped forward and took my hand, choking back tears. Perhaps he'll be here soon. Your ladyship must hold on. I squeezed her hand. Tell me the truth. Chungshuan's eyes darted away. She lowered her head and whispered, Your Majesty. Your Majesty first went to imperial consort Wen's place. I heard that imperial consort Wen had a difficult pregnancy, but His Majesty will be here soon. The imperial heirs are paramount. It is only right that His Majesty first see imperial consort Wen. Without waiting for the emperor, imperial consort Wen arrived first. Outside the door, a crowd of palace maids followed the consort, dressed in brocade palace gowns, adorned with gold and jade ornaments, exceeding the consort's rank. With such grand fanfare, one would think she was the empress. Wen Yang could no longer suppress her ambition. Chungshuan exclaimed in shock, How could it be you? Consort Wen glanced at Chungshuan, displeased. The servants in the empress's palace are too ill-mannered. I don't mind disciplining you on her behalf. I leaned against the soft cushion, my voice weak, but my aura undiminished. Consort, you haven't paid your respects to me yet. Have you forgotten the rules you learned here? It is funny, Consort Wen climbed into the emperor's bed through me. She used to be just a maid serving me. Consort Wen choked and knelt to pay her respects. After the bow, she said, Your Highness, have you seen clearly? After all, this is the last bow I will perform for you. She is wishing for my death. I smiled. I heard Consort has been having complications with her pregnancy. Are you feeling better? Consort Wen caressed her bulging belly. Thanks to the emperor's concern, I'm fine. Besides, this is my second child. Your Highness, having never given birth, probably doesn't understand the saying, the first time is difficult, the second time is familiar. As for you, Empress, you want to ask about His Majesty, don't you? I covered my mouth with a silk handkerchief and coughed, not answering. But my eyes dimmed a little. Consort Wen took a couple of light steps and smiled. Well, His Majesty said he was coming to see the Empress, but the eldest princess was being naughty, insisting on playing cat's cradle with her imperial father. You know, His Majesty, he spoils children the most. I clutched the silk handkerchief tightly, hiding a trace of crimson on it. Being childless is the pain of my entire life. But my body was fundamentally damaged back when I went into the water to save someone, leaving me unable to bear children. What is especially laughable is that I injured my body to save my sister Zhanin Zhanlaw, who is the Empress Dowager's daughter and the Emperor's own younger sister. Now that my lamp is about to run out of oil, my sister Zhanin Zhanlaw hasn't even come to visit. Consort Wen poked at my sore spot, slightly raising her chin with the posture of a victor. A maid who once groveled before me has now turned the tables, and is so full of herself. Why would the Empress Dowager like such an attitude, even going so far as to suppress me while promoting the Wens? This is completely different from how she taught me. I let out a sigh, dismissed everyone, and got straight to the point, asking the one question I could never understand in my entire life. Consort Wen, I believe I have served the Empress Dowager as if she were my own mother. So why is it that no matter what I do, she doesn't like me? As I spoke, My voice was intermittent, as if I was just hanging on by a final breath. Consort Wen looked down at me condescendingly, her gaze turning to pity. Cao Lingyi, so what if you were born with the fate of a phoenix? My eyelids were heavy, my consciousness felt like a great weight, and before I drew my last breath, I heard the answer clearly, waking up from a sleep. I had a rebirth. Looking at the decoration and furnishings in the room, it was when I was not yet married to the second prince, and still 16 years old. The Empress Dowager was also still consort Mei. So it turns out, Wen Yang is the child of consort Maggie and the emperor. Consort Mei, in order to seize power, did not hesitate to exchange the crown prince for a civet cat, clearly giving birth to a daughter, but brought someone else's son to impersonate the second prince. What a bold move. No wonder consort Mei's attitude changed drastically after becoming Empress Dowager. It turned out that I, this stepping stone, was no longer useful. Chun Chuan came in and pulled up the bed curtain. Mistress, consort Mei sent some palace servants over, asking you to pick a few clever ones. I remember now Wen Yang was sent here at this time. I never expected consort Mei to dig such a big pit for me back then. Wen Yang's identity was awkward. She was a hot potato. Consort Mei placed her by my side, and we all became grasshoppers on the same rope. With the slightest carelessness, we would be accomplices in confusing the royal bloodline, punishable by extermination of the 9 generations of relatives. The sun was shining brightly outside. Wen Yang, dressed as a palace maid, knelt in the most conspicuous position, sweat beading on her forehead. How did I not notice before? Wen Yang indeed resembles consort Mei greatly. I sat casually in a round, Dan-backed chair under the corridor, letting the palace servants paint my fingernails with impatience juice, and said grandly, "This is a test of your composure. All of you kneel properly." As soon as she finished speaking, everyone straightened their backs, including Wen Yang. After tormenting Wen Yang for a whole afternoon, I still took her in as my palace maid, because I want consort Mei to beg me to take Wen Yang back. Back then, when I had just lost power, noble consort Wen came to my palace to poach my people right to my face. But I never expected that the first one to betray me would be Ming Sha. With her taking the lead, many people shamelessly stood up, leaving only Xiao Lizi behind. Noble consort Wen was as smug as a peacock spreading its tail, and those palace servants were her shiny feathers. That is right, the Empress was bedridden with a lingering illness, and the noble consort monopolized the Emperor's favor. All the far-sighted palace servants knew they should suck up to the noble consort. That night, the sound of a maid's sobbing woke me up. It was Mingxia. In my previous life, Mingxia also woke me up by hiding outside my room and crying. I asked her if she was in any trouble, and she knelt and apologized, saying her younger brother at home was seriously ill with no money for treatment, and that she hadn't meant to wake me. I lay in bed, and unlike in my previous life, I didn't get up to foolishly give her a lot of silver. After a moment, Mingxia cried even louder. This woke up Xiao Lizi. He lowered his voice, scolded Mingxia, and sent her away. In the following days, Mingxia didn't give up and took over the foot Zan washing maid's duties. She looked up at me with a haggard and pitiful face and asked, "My lady, is the water temperature all right?" And with that, she was about to cry to me again. I pointed my finger at Wen Yang. "You wash it for me." Wen Yang was clearly stunned, biting her lip in shame and indignation. Chun Xuan was hot and tempered and yelled, "What are you wronged by washing your master's feet? If you can't do it, get lost." I didn't. Wen Yang gritted her teeth and squatted down, slowly taking my feet from Mingxia's hands, tears falling on my insteps with a plop, plop. That day, as soon as Wen Yang became a person in my palace, I ordered Chun Xuan to monitor her in secret. Chun Xuan reported that consort Mei sent someone to give Wen Yang a cooling balm. She was very confused, but I knew that consort Mei was doting on her own biological daughter. In the last life, with consort Mei speaking kindly, all I had Wen Yang do was grind ink, such a light and elegant task, which any maid would envy her. I sneered. "Can't you stand it already?" The second prince. "Oh no, it should be the crown prince." I was reborn not long after the second prince became the crown prince. Right now, I have already declined the crown prince's invitation 3 times, and he came to my door directly today. Sister Ling Yi, what has been going on with you lately? Didn't we agree that I would teach you to ride a horse, and you wouldn't come even when invited? Saying that, he reached out to rub the top of my head. The crown prince had no pretense in front of me. I once thought he was the most amiable big brother. Unfortunately, this tenderness was not exclusive to me. Since it is not mine alone, I don't want it. I tilted my head to dodge and coldly reminded, there is a difference between men and women. Your Highness, mind your boundaries. His movements visibly paused, and he awkwardly put his hand down but still maintained a smile. What is wrong? Who made you angry? I remained silent. He continued, if I accidentally upset you, I'll apologize. However, Mother Empress mentioned you haven't visited in a long time and don't respond when she asks you to eat. Mother Empress is an elder. You can't be petulant. Sorry, Your Highness, this is just how I am. As I finished speaking, Chungshuan poked my lower back. The crown prince's face turned cold. He stared at me for a while, then sighed helplessly and said dotingly, never mind, it seems even the new foals from the imperial stables aren't good enough for some people. I snorted softly and didn't reply. The crown prince gave himself an out. Forget it, it is still cold and warm these days. It is better not to leave the palace, lest you catch a cold. I remembered in my past life, I was bedridden with illness. And before I died, I desperately begged to see him but was refused, while he was enjoying family bliss with the imperial consort. Presumably, he is finally experiencing what disappointment feels like now. After driving the crown prince away, Chungshuan bombarded me with criticism, saying my behavior was dangerous and not conducive to future harmony between the emperor and empress. I turned and pulled her to Chang'an Palace, telling her with my actions that I truly had no intention of continuing with the crown prince. I even want to break off the engagement. Chang'an Palace is actually the cold palace, with only the third prince living there. A discarded prince in the cold palace is better than the cat for a prince's trick. At least he is of royal blood, and the only prince of suitable age besides the crown prince. Chang'an Palace is located in the most remote corner of the palace, with overgrown plants. Coincidentally, the third prince was being bullied by the seventh prince. The seventh prince made the third prince crawl between his legs. Logically, the seventh prince is only 9 years old, and the third prince is 16, so he shouldn't be afraid. Unfortunately, the third prince's maternal family has fallen, and he is not favored by the emperor, so he has no one to rely on. I chased the seventh prince away. No matter how arrogant the seventh prince is, he has to respectfully call me Sister Cow in front of me. After the third prince thanked me, I grabbed his sleeve. He is tall, with striking eyes. I asked, do you want to be emperor? He immediately knelt down and kowtowed, his voice trembling. I have not offended Sister Cow. Please don't harm me, Sister Cow. That scene was much more intense than facing the seventh prince earlier. Seeing him so spineless, I was also disappointed. Not long after, I heard that the seventh prince had fallen into the water and fallen ill. It can be said that evil people get their just desserts. However, the third prince is, after all, the emperor's child. So I had people arrange many things for him and provide servants. The emperor is diligent in his governance and neglects the inner palace. He is recognized as a good emperor 8 out of 10 times I visited. He was reading memorials. Just as I stepped through the door before I could even bow, the bright yellow figure on the throne beckoned to me. Ling Yi, come over, your father and brother have sent a letter. My eyes lit up, and I lifted my skirt and trotted over, which made the emperor burst into laughter. After finishing it, I pouted, this is clearly just a memorial about border affairs. Your Majesty is teasing me on purpose. That being said, my fingers still unconsciously went to caress the dried ink stains, as if by doing so I could imagine the red zan-tasseled silver armor, the generals and their troops. His Majesty sighed, the frontier is windy and bitterly cold. Your father and brothers are all fine sons who protect our home and defend the country. You are the apple of their eye. Yet I have you trapped here. Do you blame us? My father and brother are stationed at the border Yeardzan round, ensuring our country has long been free of war. His Majesty kept me in the palace and raised me himself, partly to keep my father and brother in check, and partly because he genuinely doted on me. At the end of the day, there is a debt. I understand His Majesty's guilt. He is the emperor, so the nation has to be his priority. But he is also a benevolent and virtuous ruler, so he can't bear it in his heart. If my being here can put the emperor's mind at ease about his officials, that is already the best possible arrangement. Lingyai only feels fortunate and grateful. A great general meeting a virtuous lord is like 1,000 Zan Li horse meeting Boleh. My father and brothers are devoted to protecting the nation, and it is your Majesty who has fulfilled their wish. After hearing this, His Majesty patted my head and praised, "Good child." I pouted and grumbled, "After I say the next thing, you'll wish you could take back the words, good child." "Oh?" His Majesty asked in surprise. His interest piqued. "Am I really that stingy?" I walked behind him and massaged his shoulders, saying cautiously, "Your Majesty, can I not marry the Crown Prince?" His Majesty put on a stern face and said, "It is a child's whim. The Crown Prince has done nothing wrong. How can we depose him just like that?" "No, I meant breaking off the engagement. What he is thinking is deposing and replacing the Crown Prince. This matter needs further consideration." I didn't bring it up again. His Majesty is kind to me, and I want him to live longer. I called for the imperial physician to take His Majesty's pulse. His Majesty said he was in good health, and the physician and I agreed. I really don't understand why. In my previous life, after winter, His Majesty's health took a sharp turn for the worse. Although I didn't succeed in breaking off the engagement, I begged His Majesty to put a stop to the matter of recalling Lin Yufu to court. Lin Yufu is consort Mei's father. He returned home for 3 years due to mourning. Mourning has always been like this. No matter how high one's position was before, many people fall from grace after mourning. Consort Mei was worried about this, so she asked me to put in a good word for her father. Under my persuasion, His Majesty proactively invited Lin Yufu back and promoted him to Prime Minister. Fortunately, Lin Yufu was being difficult and refused once. Now that he doesn't have to wait for His Majesty's second decree, he doesn't have to return to court at all. Consort Mei got wind of it and sent someone to invite me to the banquet again. In my past life, ever since the Crown Prince ascended the throne, Consort Mei's constant instructions to me were to be magnanimous, introspective, frugal, and set an example for the 6 palaces. It wasn't like being an empress. It was clearly like being an ascetic. After a long time, I finally understood. It was just that the Empress Dowager didn't like me and was tormenting me with Grand Zan, sounding reasons. So what if I saw through it? His Majesty rules the world with benevolence and filial piety, and would never offend the Empress Dowager for me. As soon as I entered, Consort Mei's gaze became eager. Seeing Wen Yang beside me, she smiled even more sincerely, took my hand, and the first thing she asked was, "The maid I trained for you, is she to your liking?" Listen, she doesn't even want to say the word maid, but says a more informal term for a young girl. These insignificant details, I ignored them like this in my past life. I caught a glimpse of Wen Yang's wronged expression, unable to voice her grievances, and replied with a smile, "Your ladyship is too kind. Wen Yang is very capable. I like her very much." Consort Mei suspected nothing. Does Ling Yi know when the Crown Prince's maternal grandfather will return to the capital? This child has been close to his maternal grandfather since childhood, and would be so happy to see him. I elegantly wiped away pastry crumbs from the corner of my mouth and said slowly, "Your ladyship, I am ashamed to tell you." His Majesty said Lord Lin refused. Refused. Consort Mei let out a great roar, rarely losing her composure. I just felt my ears jump in surprise. Consort Mei's face turned green, then red, looking like she had a story to tell but couldn't. She couldn't exactly say Lin Yufu was playing hard to get with His Majesty, so she just told me she'd try to persuade him. I took a sip of tea in good spirits. Who knows what the future holds? I agreed vaguely. In the past, Consort May was always digging holes for me. I glanced at Wen Yang and said to Consort May, "Why don't I see this child a Yun? Has she grown taller again recently?" When it came to her own little daughter, Consort May had nothing but praise, showering her with endless compliments and occasionally mentioning her naughtiness, though even that was filled with affection. As I chimed in, I observed Wen Yang's eyes, and sure enough, she gradually became resentful. That is right. They were both Consort May's daughters, both of royal blood, yet one was treated as a servant, while the other was cherished, like a treasure. Human nature is like this. It is not poverty that troubles people, but inequality. If I remember correctly, my sister Zan in Zan Law will fall into the water during this banquet. In my previous life, after I saved the little princess and brought her back to the palace, Wen Yang insincerely pledged her loyalty. If I had known this would happen, princess, you should have taken me with you. I'm a good swimmer, and with me there, you wouldn't have gotten hurt. Since you want to come so badly, then come. When the time was right, I pulled Consort May towards the cold pond. Plum blossoms were planted in the cold pond. At this time of year, all the plum blossoms under the heavens have withered, but only here at Her Highness Consort, Makeys have they just begun to bloom. This is all due to the Crown Prince's filial piety. Help, in the distance. There was a cry for help that sounded like it was from the little princess. By the time we rushed to the shore, the little princess was bobbing up and down in the middle of the water. I said, "Wen Yang is from a fishing village and is the best at swimming. Go save her already." Right. Quickly save Yunner. Consort May, reacting a beat too late to my words, stared blankly at Wen Yang. Who? The palm and the back of the hand are both flesh. This dilemma was placed before her. Consort May chose to look away and shouted anxiously, "Quick! Save the little princess, quick!" I gave Wen Yang a push, and she could only brace herself and get into the water to save her. After the person was rescued, Consort May saw that the little princess was not seriously harmed, and then summoned the imperial physician to check on Wen Yang. After checking her pulse, the imperial physician came to a conclusion. Coldness had entered her body, and he feared it would be difficult for her to have children in the future, exactly the same as me in my past life. Consort May's eyes instantly turned red, and she murmured, "How could this be?" Wen Yang couldn't accept this outcome. She shook off Consort May's hand and said resentfully, "Are you satisfied now, Your Highness?" I scolded Wen Yang. "By saving the princess, you have done a great service to Her Highness as a servant. This is your blessing. How dare you give Her Highness such an attitude?" She bit her lip and said nothing. Consort May quickly placated me. "Forget it. I'm fine. Don't say any more to her." I replied to Concubine May, "It is my poor discipline. Your Highness often teaches me womanly virtues, and I keep them in my heart. After I return, I will definitely reward and punish clearly, so as not to make Your Highness troubled." Concubine May said urgently, Don't. I'm really not angry. It is Your Highness's magnanimity that you are not angry. It is getting late. I'll take her back to reflect." Concubine May covered her forehead with a headache. "Ling Yi, I've been thinking, why don't you give Wen Yang back to me? She hurt herself saving the princess. I'll find a physician to treat her. What do you think?" I pretended to be troubled and reprimanded Wen Yang. "Since Your Highness intends to teach you, you must serve the little princess and concubine, May well. Do you understand?" Wen Yang was so angry that her nostrils flared slightly, and she gritted her teeth. "Thank you for your teaching, princess." After sending away this hot potato, Wen Yang, even if the Li Mao Huan Taizi, Li Mao Huan Taizi Jian'e scheme of replacing the crown prince was exposed, it would no longer implicate me. Concubine May wants to drag me down with her. No way. As for how this mother and daughter will repair their relationship, it has nothing to do with me. I saw the crown prince approaching from a distance. I quickly hid behind the rockery and unexpectedly overheard a conversation. The crown prince's subordinate said, "What is wrong with Miss Cow lately? She used to visit the East Palace every few days. Has she really changed her mind?" The crown prince said irritably, "That is just her personality. She'll be fine after a few days of being ignored." Yes, Miss Cow's devotion to you is known to all under heaven. Yeah, the crown prince just takes advantage of my affection for him. Every time I stir up some trouble, he'll give me the cold shoulder for a few days. That is just how it was before I died in my last life. Coming out from the rockery, I bumped into someone Zan the third prince. Turns out I wasn't the only one eavesdropping. He nodded at me as a greeting, and we went our separate ways. At night, I was just wandering by the pond when I heard someone muttering. Unexpectedly, I saw a figure from behind burning joss paper. Burning joss paper in the palace is a major taboo, I shouted. Who is there? Not expecting it to be the third prince. He cried out, Sister Cow, in a panic, lowering his head as if he'd done something wrong. Are you paying respects to your mother, consort? After he was found out, he grabbed my sleeve, looking pitiful. Sister Cow, I know I was wrong. Please don't tell Father Emperor, okay? The third prince and I now had a secret. This secret made him come to my palace often, under the pretext of repaying me. From then on, I had a little tail following me, constantly calling me Sister Cow. Sometimes, I even began to suspect that he was seducing me. For example, right now he has fallen into the water. His already handsome brows and eyes are misty and crimson, like a drowning siren. I ordered the palace attendants to pull him up, but he sullenly slapped their hands away and reached out directly to me. I reluctantly held out my hand, urging him, hurry up. A cold, wet touch gripped my palm, and I caught a triumphant smirk. Those who get close to me are only after that position. In private, I asked him again, do you want to be the emperor? The first time I asked him this question, he immediately knelt down and begged for mercy. The situation at that time could also be interpreted in another way. He was being cautious in the palace and didn't trust me. From overhearing the crown prince's conversation, to the leverage he intentionally handed me, and his recent observation of me. I think he should believe that I'm serious now. Sure enough, his whole demeanor changed. He put away his smile, and his eyes became solemn. What is the price? Set me free. He looked at me, his eyelids slowly moving. All right, I promise you. After forming the alliance, I began to take action. First, I drastically replaced the palace attendants around me, a complete staff overhaul. Serving in my palace is a cushy job. Every single one of these attendants had to give it their all just to get in. But I knew that after my grand wedding to the crown prince, I followed consort May's teachings and was frugal in every way, and quite a few people had become disloyal. I rewarded all the newly appointed palace staff with gold, with only one requirement. Loyalty. The entire imperial palace was green with envy, and those replaced staff regretted it so much their guts turned green. Yet they still had no idea what they did wrong. Mingxia requested an audience several times, but I avoided her each time. For someone disloyal, I will absolutely not give a second chance. The ones I trust most are still Chungshuan and Shaoxuanzi. For this, I sent them both expensive gifts, which can also be considered repayment for their sincere loyalty in our past lives. You could say the entire palace was a scene of celebration. At this time, the person I arranged to spy on Wen Yang reported that the crown prince had been getting along well with Wen Yang lately, and consort May seemed pleased. Of course, she was pleased. Wen Yang's body was injured, and she was throwing a tantrum with consort May. Only when she saw the crown prince did her mood improve a little. I've been secretly competing with Wen Yang for so long that I can almost guess what she is thinking. Firstly, the crown prince has taken her position as heir. She naturally believes that only their union can set everything back on track, and she should be the empress. Secondly, she and consort May see me as a stepping stone. Only with me is there a crown prince. She dares not openly seize it, which is already frustrating. Secretly exchanging glances with the crown prince must make her feel good inside. As for the crown prince, since he could have children with Wen Yang one after another in his previous life, he must have fallen for her tricks. Chunchuan reminded me, Mistress, you should not quarrel with the crown prince. Otherwise, those vixen Zian-like women will find an opportunity. I remembered something Wen Yang said when she was making fun of me. What is yours, no one can take away. What is not yours, even if I don't take it, someone else will. I don't want a relationship that I have to fight for to keep. The reason the third prince was not favored back then was that his birth mother had an affair, and he was suspected of being a bastard. Years have passed, and the third prince and his majesty look exactly alike. Who would dare to say they are not father and son? With me speaking well of him before his majesty finally remembered that he still had a son. Seeing the third prince, the emperor understood everything in his heart. He used it as an opportunity to test him on some classics, and the father and son chatted in the hall of diligent governance for an afternoon. Hearing that the third prince answered excellently, the emperor was overjoyed. Before long, the emperor prepared to hold a belated birthday banquet for the third prince, a small banquet attended only by family. Although the banquet was small, it was a signal that the third prince was back in favor. I smiled and congratulated him. Third prince, when you're rich and honored, don't forget me. I also owe my good fortune to Sister Cow. After speaking, he whispered in my ear, I've prepared a gift for you, sister. Keep an eye out later. Just as I was about to ask him what the gift was, the crown prince, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, appeared behind me and called me as usual, Sister Lingyi. I turned around and paid my respects. After congratulating the third prince, he said to me coldly, You are this palace's future crown princess. Many eyes are watching you in private, so pay attention to your boundaries with others. He wasn't happy about me whispering with the third prince, but this wasn't just a warning to me, it was also a warning to the third prince. After nodding to the third prince, the crown prince dragged me away. Let go of me, crown prince. What are you doing? The crown prince tidied his clothes, maintaining his composure, but his words were full of questioning. Did you help him see the emperor? I said indifferently. He is your younger brother. So naturally he is my younger brother too. I see him living all alone in the cold palace, without even a bowl of longevity noodles for his birthday. How pitiful, the crown prince is both an older brother and the future ruler. Are you really afraid he'll steal your favor? He didn't calm down at my words. Instead, his eyes glinted sharply. When did you get so close to him? Not at all, I just treat him as your younger brother. The crown prince said coldly, Since you know. He is my younger brother. You should know the boundaries between a sister Zan law and a brother Zan law. TSK, slapping a label of impropriety on her just like that. Why doesn't he say that to the third prince? Isn't it just because he sees her as a pushover? We had a fight, and just like last time, we parted unhappily. At the banquet, the crown prince was quieter than usual, yet he had to force himself to act happy for his third brother, toasting him cup after cup. I felt awkward just watching him. At some point, the crown prince was no longer at the feast, and the third prince invited us to go admire the coral gifted by his majesty. A group of people was passing a stone bridge when someone exclaimed, Why are there two people in the pavilion? Looking from afar, in the Shifeng pavilion, a woman was sitting leaning against a pillar. A man had his arm around her shoulders, and the two were kissing passionately. Because the view was blocked by a pillar, one could only see that the woman was wearing a palace maid's clothes. The emperor squinted and ordered the guards to bring these two forward. Amidst the sound of everyone whispering and discussing, the figures of the crown prince and the palace maid appeared. Consort May's legs went weak, and she almost fell on me. I supported her. Your Highness, what is wrong? I don't know who pushed my shoulder, reminding me to look up, and I saw the crown prince kneeling on the ground, his head turned away. How could it be you, crown prince? I feigned surprise. In fact, I had already recognized them when Consort May identified the crown prince and Wen Yang. Right now, naturally, I had to put on an act. Sure enough, I received one pitying gaze after another. I then ordered Wen Yang to raise her head. A guard grabbed her by the hair, forcing her head up, and I saw shame and fear on her face. Yes, seducing the heir apparent and being exposed in front of everyone. His Majesty would not let her off lightly. The Emperor's face was grim with anger. Crown Prince, what is your explanation? The Crown Prince avoided my gaze and said with an ashen face, Your son had a bit to drink and got drunk for a moment. I said, But I remember your highness has always had a high tolerance for alcohol. The Crown Prince didn't expect me to expose him. He glanced at me and confessed, Recently, Sister Lingy and I had a falling out. Your son was heartbroken, and that is why I made a mistake. I beseech your majesty to punish me. In just a few words, the Crown Prince downplayed a major issue, turning it into a lover's quarrel between us. He also dragged me into it, implying that today's events were partly my fault, and he wasn't the only one to blame. Besides, as the Crown Prince, it is normal for him to have a full harem in the future. Having 1 or 2 beds and warming maids isn't considered excessive, but to be caught in front of so many people, in front of his fiancée, it harms both the royal family's dignity and the goodwill with the KO family. Instantly, the Crown Prince's supporters all spoke up for him. And Consort May also said that the Crown Prince would definitely not make the same mistake again. The Emperor was still somewhat satisfied with the Crown Prince, and wouldn't despise him over this. But considering my feelings, he ordered in a deep voice, Take this shameless servant girl, and have her caned to death. Wen Yang's eyes widened in terror, and she tugged on the hem of the Crown Prince's clothes. Crown Prince, save me, save me. Unable to bear it, the Crown Prince said, Father Emperor, your son knows he was wrong. Can you please spare a Yang? The Emperor didn't expect the Crown Prince to actually plead for a palace maid right in front of me, and he angrily roared, Shut up, say one more word and I'll take it. You don't want to be the Crown Prince anymore. Of course the Crown Prince wanted to continue. Who wouldn't want to hold the power of life and death? He wanted to speak, but stopped. Tears streamed from Consort May's eyes as she cried out, Your Majesty, this servant girl saved a Yun's life. She is the princess's savior. Please, Your Majesty, spare her life. A Yun, hurry up and say something. I secretly rolled my eyes. My sister Xanan's in-law has been spoiled since childhood. She wasn't even grateful when I saved her, let alone for a servant girl. But the precious, pampered little princess stepped forward and said, She was the one who saved me. Mother Consort has been teaching me these days to be good to her, to repay kindness. Your daughter remembers her. Consort May breathed a sigh of relief, and Wen Yang also breathed a sigh of relief. Hearing these words, I just wanted to sneer. So that is how it is, children act according to the words and deeds of adults. In my previous life, although I saved her, she showed no gratitude towards me. One can only imagine how Consort May taught her. I knew that once these words were spoken, Wen Yang would escape this disaster. Oh well, keeping her around is still useful to me. Your Majesty, since she is a Yun's lifesaver, and also a palace maid personally trained by Her Highness Consort May, why not spare her? The Emperor glanced at me and suddenly asked, That matter mentioned in the Hall of Diligent Governance the other day, was it also because of this? It took me a moment to react before I realized His Majesty was referring to the matter of me not wanting to marry the Crown Prince. I honestly nodded, yes. The Emperor sighed and finally decided, Lowly maid is to go to the laundry bureau, and the Crown Prince is to reflect on his mistakes on his own. In the following days, the Crown Prince came to my door every day to curry favor. He got wind of it from His Majesty and learned that I had mentioned calling off the engagement. I can only say His Majesty still dotes on this son of his. However, the Crown Prince finally knew that I was serious. He explained to me that he and Wen Yang only lost their composure because they were drunk, and that he would absolutely not embarrass me again before our wedding. The Crown Prince and I were indeed getting married soon. Listen to that. He only guarantees he won't embarrass me before the wedding. Perhaps because I've always been easy to coax, he thought that by explaining to me in such a meek and humble manner, I would eventually take back my previous angry words. Secretly, he still went to visit Wen Yang and look after her. It seems he does have genuine feelings for Wen Yang. If he knew that Wen Yang is the real child of Consort May the Emperor, and that he is a fake, would he still take care of her like this? On my end, I refused to cooperate with the Bureau of Imperial Attire for a fitting. On the other end, I told the third prince about the second prince's true origins, telling him to watch over Wen Yang, that she must not die. It is just that I underestimated the crown prince's passionate and deeply affectionate nature. I didn't expect that in order to make me marry him with complete devotion, he would stop at nothing. I drank the sweet soup he sent, and woke up in the crown prince's palace. The guards outside the door were on the ground. The third prince broke down the door and rushed in, carrying me back to my bedchambers. The third prince forged an imperial decree: 1, to save me; 2, to set a trap for the crown prince. He had arranged everything. Tonight, the crown prince will overhear his true origins at the entrance of Qinzheng Hall, and will mistakenly think His Majesty is investigating it. Wen Yang has also been swapped out by him. Everything is proceeding according to plan. He reassured me that all of this would be over soon. I suddenly asked him, "Do you still remember what your mother consort looked like?" He scoffed. "She died right after I was born. How could I possibly remember?" He paused, then added, "Even if I don't remember, I know she was the person who loved me most in this world." My eyes suddenly welled up. Even if I can't see my parents and older brother, I can guess that on every full moon night from the desolate desert, they pray from afar for peace and prosperity, and pray from afar for my safety and happiness. I said, "You must remember your promise." He helplessly dragged out his words. "Yes, to give Sister Kauso her freedom. The thing to fear most when playing against someone is to fall into disarray yourself. Falling into disarray will make your murderous intent too strong." The third prince brought me the news that Wen Yang had accidentally fallen into a well and drowned. This Wen Yang is not that Wen Yang. The one who died was a body double he found. The double only needed to look somewhat alike. Once soaked in water, there was no semblance of a person left, and even the crown prince wouldn't recognize him. Rumor has it that the real Wen Yang witnessed the entire process and was so scared he couldn't eat. Lately, the atmosphere in the palace has been rather jumpy. The crown prince no longer comes to see me. I close my eyes and ponder. If I were the crown prince knowing I wasn't a royal heir, what would I do? The answer is self-evident. It is time to have a showdown with His Majesty. I can't be the one to say it, nor can the third prince. It can only be Wen Yang right now. Wen Yang has only 2 paths before her: either wait for the crown prince to kill her to eliminate this problem for good, or take a gamble and get His Majesty to acknowledge her as his daughter. With all the groundwork that has been laid, I'm sure she has long been unwilling to be a handmaiden. Besides, without consort May's scheming, she will definitely make plans for herself. Since the third prince came out of the cold palace, his maternal grandfather's family was also given important positions again. Wen Yang's case was handed over to the court, and His Majesty secretly summoned Wen Yang. As for the crown prince, even though I was extremely uncooperative, he still insisted on holding the wedding. When that day finally came, I was tied up by the crown prince in the Eastern Palace. He pinched my chin and said, "No matter what, you are my empress. Our marriage was decreed by the late emperor." Jen, the late emperor. It seems he had already made up his mind to ascend the throne today. What a ridiculous bestowed marriage. His Majesty had already informed me that he had long seen through the crown prince's actions and made his deployments, telling me to cooperate with the crown prince and not let him harm me. I just smiled. I didn't scold him, nor did I correct him. The wedding escort party took off their red clothes, and every one of them became an agile warrior. I watched them protect the crown prince as they fought their way to the hall of diligent governance, unstoppable. His Majesty and a eunuch were standing at the doorway, with Wen Yang hiding behind the eunuch. The crown prince spotted Wen Yang. "You're not dead. The woman who flaunted the crown prince's undying favor to me in our last life is now like a startled bird, frantically waving her hands. Don't kill me. Don't kill me." Just then, the third prince arrived with his men and shouted loudly, "I, your son, am late to your rescue with the capital guards. Please forgive me, Father Emperor." The emperor let out a long sigh. The third prince came to my rescue. "Crown Prince, and you, why are you here? Is it for that position?" The emperor pointed his finger at the dragon throne. When the son of heaven is angered, 1,000,000 corpses float. My hands were tied. I knelt on the ground, looking like a quail. The crown prince is incapable of accomplishing anything. His status as an imperial heir was given by consort May. His glory and favor were given by the emperor, and even his position as crown prince was given by me. All the weapons were thrown to the ground, and the crown prince also surrendered without a fight. Consort May rushed over, dressed in her finest attire. It was obvious at a glance that she had been kept in the dark. Indeed, a few days ago when Consort May learned of Wen Yang's death, I heard she was so heartbroken she was bedridden for a long time. Today was supposed to be a joyous occasion. She must have finally managed to compose herself. But then she faintly heard the sounds of fighting and killing from within the palace, and only then did she realize the crown prince was staging a coup. The third prince brought out an imperial physician under escort and reported, "This man was also bribed by the crown prince, intending to poison you." That is right. In 2 lifetimes, the emperor never fell ill. How did his health suddenly deteriorate in my past life? I'm afraid it was also the crown prince's doing. I just don't know if consort May was involved in it in my past life. The emperor grabbed a teacup, smashed it at the crown prince's feet, and roared, "He is not the crown prince, not my son." Upon hearing this, consort May's eyes rolled back, and she fainted dead away on the spot. When the dust settled, the crown prince and consort May had their 9 familial generations implicated, to be beheaded in the coming days. Meanwhile, the crown prince's birth mother was found by His Majesty. It turned out she was consort May's personal maid, whose entire family had been annihilated years ago to silence them. The royal way of self-Jan preservation has been my way of survival since childhood. I extracted myself cleanly from this series of events, not getting blindly involved. Third prince brought me cherry pudding. I used to bring him food. Now it is him, he said. The deposed crown prince wants to see me, I said impatiently. You said that last time. I don't want to see him. I don't want to see him. He said he would wait for you forever. Seeing the deposed crown prince again, I felt a bit dazed. The brother in my memory, who was as radiant as the wind and clear as the sky, became blurry, replaced by the unshaven, dejected prisoner before me. What do you want me for? I asked, as cold as ever. The deposed crown prince heard my voice, looked up, and his eyes lit up. Chains clinked. He gripped the bars, his eyes dimmed again. You've come. He closed his eyes and said, I never knew when you stopped caring about me, Lingyi. I admit that apart from the matter with Wen Yang, I haven't treated you badly. Why? My eyes burned, and a tear rolled down. I said slowly, as for giving up, I can't quite remember. Maybe it was eating a whole table of food I made for you by myself. Maybe it was when your child threw away the sachet I sewed for you, and you spoke indifferently. Maybe it was a blaming look when I was wrongly accused of pushing noble consort Wen. Maybe it was your attitude of defending the Empress Dowager without question. The deposed crown prince looked confused. What child, what noble consort Wen, what Empress Dowager? None of these happened. Lingyi, what are you talking about? I wiped away my tears and smiled. The collapse between us started when you appointed Wen Yang as imperial consort, and you had children with her, while I was made infertile saving your sister. It ended when, on my deathbed, I wanted to see my parents and brother, and you were busy pleasing her and never came. This is our past life, Your Majesty. The deposed crown prince was lost in thought for a long time, murmuring past life. Outside the prison, the sun was dazzling, and a figure stood guard at the entrance. From behind, the deposed crown prince suddenly asked me, Lingyi, if I wasn't the imperial heir from beginning to end, would you marry me? And would we be happy? I stopped walking. But my phoenix fate is hard to defy, you forgot. If he wasn't the imperial heir, we had no chance. As I was about to disappear into the corridor, his voice was fading. I'm sorry. I didn't look back at him, and headed for the door. The third prince's eyes lit up when he saw me, a gaze that was strangely familiar. It was as if I had seen it in the deposed crown prince's eyes before. The next day, the deposed crown prince committed suicide. I covered my eyes and cried for a whole day. In my past calculations, I miscalculated one thing. That is, His Majesty would not pass away as in the previous life. In other words, the third prince fulfilling his promise is nowhere in sight. Along with that, I took my anger out on him and was often displeased. Chunxuan said, "You're the only one who can bully the third prince, and it is because he lets you. You'd know what I'm saying is true if you saw how scared the seventh prince is of him." When I reached a certain age, His Majesty pointed at me and scolded, "You're 18 already. If you don't get married, your father and brother will blame me for raising you poorly." After scolding me, he then scolded the third prince. "You're also not young anymore. Get married if you should, pursue if you should. Don't just follow around all day calling sister, sister." The emperor mimicked the third prince's speech, making me both angry and amused. When I was 20, the third prince and I got married. That day, he still called me Sister Cow, but he called me that all night. The second year after our marriage, I gave birth to a son. Having lived 2 lives, heaven knows how excited I was at that moment. The 8th year after our marriage, His Majesty passed away. I was genuinely sad. His Majesty was a good emperor and a good father. Immediately after, Wen Yang also died. That arrogant consort Wen eventually faded from my memory, leaving only a pitiable person whose life was ruined by consort Mei. The first thing the new emperor did after ascending the throne was to order me to write him a letter of divorce. He kept his word, more or less. I got into a carriage and headed for the border. After a month of jolting travel, when I arrived at the border, I could vaguely see the white funeral banners that had not yet been taken down. I couldn't help but think of the new emperor, who had been left in the palace to take over state affairs. I hugged my parents and brother tightly, crying sadly. Just as the new emperor had once said, "We are connected by blood. Even if we can't see each other, we know that the other person loves us." Why am I thinking of him again? For the first 2 months after I left, my parents and brother were especially good to me. In the 3rd month, Mom started trying to persuade me to go back to my husband and child, not to just loaf around all day. In the 4th month, my older brother had already started snatching the chicken leg from my bowl. In the 5th month, the 15th, was the Mid-Zan Autumn Festival. In the past, at this time, the people I missed were my parents and older brother. This time, it was the new emperor instead. I wondered how he was getting by all alone in the lonely, deep palace, but with the children to keep him company, I figured he must be happy. Just as I was thinking of him, I unexpectedly saw him at the borderlands. On the main street, he held a child in each hand, looking unusually aggrieved. "Sister Cow, do you really not want us anymore?" I lifted my skirt and dashed over, pulling his neck down, closed my eyes and kissed.